Hi everyone, thank you for joining me for this tutorial on the decorative bunting. Today we are going to make a decorative bunting using a charm pack, which is a packet of 5-inch squares, one charm pack, and one packet, this is 4 yards, of 1/2-inch bias tape. And your PDF printable pattern is what you're going to need to make this tutorial. So one charm pack and one pack of 4 yards of bias tape is going to give you two decorative buntings, and they are double-sided. So you can flip them around, you can just turn them around every year or every other day, whatever you want to do. So to get started, you are going to want to print out your pattern, and then you are going to cut it out, trace it onto cardstock, or if you can print it on cardstock, go ahead and print it on cardstock, because you're going to need a thicker paper, because what we are going to be doing is tracing these onto our 5-inch squares. So let me show you how to do that. So what you're going to do is pick out 20 squares for one of your buntings. So let's pick out 20 that you like, and then you're going to pair them up. So you're going to have pairs, and you want to just make sure that you have them laid out in an order that looks good to you. If you have a directional pattern, like say you have stripes and you want them going vertical, you want to just make sure that when you're putting your pattern on that the stripes are going vertical. So to do this, we are going to put our squares right sides together, and this means the right side of the fabric is the part that you see the print on or the color on, and the back side is usually very faded. So it's usually very easy to tell on a printed or pattern fabric what the right and wrong sides are. So when I say right sides together, we are literally just going to take our top one and we're going to flip it, and we're going to put these two patterns together. Okay, let's line it up nice and good. And after you've done this, you're going to take your pattern, you're going to line it up in the center of your square with the top of your pattern right at the top of your squares. And then you're going to grab a pin. You can use a fabric pin if you like. Today I am just using a regular ballpoint pen, and you are going to hold down your pattern and you are going to trace around it just like this. And if you have a darker print fabric, you just want to make sure that you're using something that is either dark enough where you can see it on the fabric, or maybe even using just a little chalk, a little white chalk, to outline your pattern so you can see really well on a dark fabric. Okay, so now that we have this traced onto our one piece, we have our pieces together, but we only traced it on the top piece. You are more than welcome to put a pin in here and hold your two pieces together, but I like to go rogue and I never pin anything. So that is just how I learned, and that is how I continue to do things. But you're more than welcome to pin this just to give yourself a little more confidence that you don't move anything or mess anything up. So the next part of our tutorial, we are going to sew. Every sewing machine is different. So your settings on your sewing machine, as I put in my previous post, my beginning post, is you just want to make sure that you know how to load your bobbin, which is down here, and your top thread. And you just want to kind of play around with that and make sure you've got a good stitch going, a good straight stitch. Make sure your tension and everything is going well. For most sewing machines, the setting for the tension should be about a 5. For mine, I have to go a little in the higher numbers to kind of tighten that tension up. So every sewing machine is different. You just want to run some fabric through before you start your project and make sure you've got it to the right setting. So now what we're going to do is sew. So we are going to actually sew right on the line that we drew. So I am going to line this up so that my needle is going to go right along this line. So I have this set up so I'm going to go right along the line. So we're going to drop our needle down, do a few forward stitches, and then we're going to do a few back stitches right here just at the beginning. And now we're going to go along our line, and it is totally okay to go slow. In fact, I recommend going slow, especially around the curve. Another good tip for when you are going around the curve is to keep your stitch length short. So the shorter the stitch, the easier it's going to be for you to kind of get around that curve. And we don't want to push our fabric up under the presser foot, we're just kind of guiding it. So when I get to a place where my curve starts going a little too far and I can't quite position my fabric under it, I just pick my presser foot up and like turn. I turn my fabric just a little bit so that I'm staying right on that line as I'm going around this curve. And that's totally okay to do, and it's totally okay to go slow because you want to make sure you're staying on that line that you drew. So our needle is going right through that line, and you are going to do this for all of your charms. So my buntings are 10, I have 10 on a line. So you will need 20 squares to make one. If you want to make yours longer, you are more than welcome to do that. But I found that if you do 10, you get, 20 charms per bunting, and then you get 2 buntings with 2 little charms. That's 5-inch squares left over for another project. So when we come around the curve, we get back on our straight line, and it's just a little easier to stay lined up. So when you get to the end, you want to make sure you do a couple back stitches, and then you just stitch off, lift your needle, lift your presser foot, cut your threads, and let's see, we've stitched right on our line. So you are going to do this for every single one of your charms. And when you are finished sewing them all, I recommend just going ahead and sewing them all. You are going to grab a pair of fabric scissors, and you are just going to cut off just around, leaving about a 1/2 inch around. So you're just cutting these corners here. So just kind of leaving some seam allowance, just like that. And then around this curved part here, you're just going to want to do a little bit of snipping, just so your seam allowance can kind of spread out when we turn this right side out. You definitely want to make sure you do not clip through your sewn line. So do not clip through your stitches, but just take some scissors and do a couple little snips so that will spread out nice when we turn it right side out. So after you have sewn all of your charms together and done your little trim, what you're going to do is turn this right side out, just like how you would turn a sock right side out. And you're going to run your finger along the seam here, not pushing too hard because you don't want to poke a hole in it. You're just going to run your fingernail, your finger, or a pen or something if you want to stick in there, and just kind of straighten out the bottom here, any puckering. And this looks good, I think. So once you've got it all straightened out, you're just going to kind of smooth it out, and then do this for all of your charms, and we're going to take it over to the iron and give it a press so it's nice and flat. Okay, so now that you have sewn together all of your little charm squares and you have clipped them and ironed them, now it's time to string your little shapes on your bias tape. So to do this, what we are going to do is you're going to, I'm just going to clip this because it's kind of bent up there. So what you're going to do for this part is unravel a little bit of your bias tape and just set it off to the right side. And you are going to fold down, if you can see this, you're going to fold down your end here just about 1/4 of an inch and put this under your sewing machine here. Let me just adjust my settings. Put this up under your sewing machine and just kind of sew that together so your end there is nice and okay, now that you have your edge folded over so there's no raw edge hanging out, you're going to line this up on a ruler and you are going to make a mark with a pen at 7 inches. And we know that that's where we're going to line up our first shape. So before we do that, we're going to fold this in half. So we have 1/4 of an inch. And we're going to sew that down. And when I'm sewing, I just like to be right here, not off the edge, but just close to the edge when I'm sewing this together. So you will want to line your sewing machine needle up with either side of your presser foot. And I use my presser foot as a guide. However, this is going to work for you to make the most sense. So I line my bias tape up the folded edge with the edge of my presser foot. And then I put my needle down, do a few stitches, and a few back stitches to hold that in place. And then I just kind of breeze it on through there. I've got it stuck here. Hold on. All right, let's see. There we go. So needle down, a few stitches, a few back stitches. We're going to fold it and just zoom through the sewing machine until we get close to our mark that we made. And once we get close to it, we're just going to a little more. Okay, once we get close to it, we're going to grab our little bunting shape and we are going to line it up with that mark we made. And we're going to fold our bias tape over our little shape here, which is hard to do sometimes with these thin bias tapes, but I think the thinner the bias tape, it just looks nicer. You are more than welcome to use a thicker bias tape if you feel more comfortable having a little more room to work with, but I think this works out just fine. We're gonna, when we get up to our bunting shape, we are going to stitch forward a few times, and right where it meets, we're going to do a few back stitches just to really secure it on the line. So we're going to keep going. You're more than welcome to pin this down, but I find working with pins on this project is just a little bit, it can just be a little annoying because you're going to be having pins sticking out everywhere. But if you have clips, they make these clips called Wonder Clips, and you just clip them on instead of having a pointy ball pin. So when we get to our next shape, what we're going to do, we're not going to go all the way. We're going to wait, go about, well, let's see, 3/4 of the way, and then we are going to line up our bunting shape just flush with the other one. So you're going to put it right next to the other one and keep on going. When you get to the end of one, you want to do a few back stitches to secure that. Some people might want to hang their buntings outside, and if the wind blows, we just want to make sure nothing's going to fall off. So we back stitch at the end and beginning of every shape. So now we're just going to keep going. About 3/4 of the way, we're going to add another shape to the bias tape and fold it over. Back stitch. Back stitch again. And you will want to make sure that your bobbin thread and your top thread match your bias tape. Okay, now that you are at the end of your bunting, you are going to want to grab a ruler and just line it up here with the edge of your last shape, and you are going to want to make another mark at the 7-inch mark. And in fact, go up about a 1/2 inch. So 7.5, because remember we're going to fold that end over. So make a mark at 7.5. Go ahead and clip right at that 7.5-inch mark. Set your bias tape aside and fold this end over. Well, fold your end over about 1/4 of an inch, remember, and fold in half, and just hold that with your fingers, or you can pin it or clip it with one of the clips, and sew all the way to the end. And I'm just going to go right under the presser foot, and when we get to the end, we want to do just a few back stitches to hold our stitches. And your bunting is now complete. So we're going to trim our threads. If you have any little threads sticking out here in your corners, I find it's easiest to grab a pair of embroidery scissors and just go through and clip any loose threads. But there you have it, one charm pack and one packet of 1/2-inch bias tape is going to give you 2 decorative buntings. And these are so fun to make. Mine are 4th of July summer theme, but you can make these for any holiday. You can make them, you know, match your room decor. I have one hanging up in my daughter's room that matches her colors in her room. You can even get the press-on iron letters from the craft store and put words on your buntings, and that's super cute and super fun to make, like a happy birthday or a Merry Christmas bunting. But I just love the fabric and the patterns. So a simple plain bunting, I mean, these are so cute and so fun. You can hang them up on your mantle, you can hang them up outside on your porch, just anywhere. They are just a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and stay tuned because I will have more to come. Thank you.